the power of tailoring your resume, why your mindset matters, and what networking can do for you, all on this episode of the Take Back Your Career podcast.
You need to take action, and you're about to get real-world information and insight for fixing your career. This is the Take Back Your Career podcast with your host, Adam Fullerton.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Take Back Your Career podcast, which is dedicated to helping you find happiness, fulfillment, and financial security in the work that you do. And we do this by interviewing real experts who can provide actionable ideas, which can produce real results. And today, our expert is Jennifer Garibay, who is a staffing contractor at Google and provides resume and career consulting services through her website, jennifernoellegaribay.com. So, Jennifer, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Adam. Thanks so much for having me. I am doing great, recovering from a little bit of the turkey hangover and getting ready for a busy month, busy 2021. But thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. The honor is all mine. And kind of an insight to anybody listening to this podcast. What happened, actually, we were supposed to record this 2 days ago. Jennifer was awesome, and she joined the chat, and then I had some audio issues on my end, and I had to reschedule, which was going to take place before Thanksgiving. Now it's after Thanksgiving, so we're probably both stuffed full, and we're going to recover this weekend, like you said. So again, thank you, Jennifer, for being on. And I want to get right into it. Obviously, this podcast is, again, it's focused on people who are really lacking excitement and opportunity in their career. And it's not because they don't care. It's just they're lost, they're stuck, and they're looking for help. And that's why we're having this conversation today. So I want to kick this off and talk about mindset and what people should think about and know about, and how that works with their job search, and what type of information and thoughts and input and help you would provide people in that type of situation.
So, Adam, the thing that I tell my clients and the things that I tell job seekers in general is it's all about staying positive. You know, you never know what opportunities are waiting for you out there, and you never know what you can achieve until you try. I know it sounds super cliche and super cheesy, but there's a reason why it's a cliche and it's super cheesy, because it's true. You know, when you apply yourself, there's really nothing you can't accomplish. So it's really the first thing I focus on with my clients is opening yourself up to the possibility that there's more out there that you haven't considered. And a lot of this comes from my own personal experience, you know, through getting to Google, even as a contractor. It's been honestly surreal coming here and starting to work for them about 16 months ago. It was something that I never saw for myself, that I never thought would be possible for myself. And it's because I had a lack of that mindset. I didn't think that those opportunities were for me, and I was holding myself back by not realizing that there was more out there. So it's so important to shift your thinking, shift your focus, focus on your goals, whatever those are, and know that you can attain them with the right work ethic, the right help. And so, yeah, it's really about getting strategic with that mindset. And then on the other hand, with the job search, not so much applying to every job out there. You know, a lot of people, when they need a job, and, you know, things are hard right now with COVID, obviously, a lot of people are hurting, but, you know, not applying for every job out there, just, you know, throwing darts at the dartboard, hoping something's going to stick eventually, but being very strategic with your skill set, with where you're trying to go, and trying to make those avenues meet, because then you're going to be applying for roles that you have a much better chance at attaining.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the first thing that you mentioned, or one of the things that you just mentioned, is the first thing people do is when they're looking for a new job, they type in a search, whether it's marketing or finance or whatever it might be, in LinkedIn or Monster or whatever, you know, site they're going to, and then they don't really care about the description or the role. They really just care about the title and getting out of a company, and they apply and they apply and again, they're kind of setting themselves up for failure, if you ask me. And that can really kind of, I think, to your point, that can really crush you, so to speak, and it can get your hopes up and then really get your hopes down, because they might get a letter that says, thanks, but, you know, you're not right for the job, or you're not a good fit for this job, because of the description that they probably gloss over, and they just say, you know, again, I just want a new job, and that can really, I think, make them uncomfortable and say, maybe I'm not good enough. And I think that's where the mindset comes into play.
Oh, 100%. And getting rejection letters obviously is never something fun that anyone wants to experience, and it can start to weigh on your morale. So, if you're just applying for things, like you said, just based on the title, which happens all the time, people not really reading in depth, like, do I actually have the skills to do this? And then, receiving a bunch of rejections because they're not getting targeted with that search and really hitting on the competencies that are going to be more focused in those specific roles.
Absolutely. And I think patience is a big component of it. I think a lot of people want to, get out of their job or the company that they're at, and they're impatient. And so again, they just try to find anything and everything. And they need to be, to your point, a little bit more strategic in their search and be patient and realize that an opportunity is out there. If they're strategic, they're patient, and they remain calm, they're going to find something. It just might take time. Of course, Rome wasn't built in a day, but people want to change their entire their job or their career in a day, and it's just obviously not how it works. So I want to ask you, as the expert, when it comes to resumes and making sure your resume is good and it's got a clean presentation, what do you recommend? How do you work with your clients to make sure that they're ready for that next step when they go from point A of I want to do something else with my job or my career to point B, which is applying or at least getting ready to apply to other positions at other companies, or even if it's in the same company realistically?
So really, resumes are sort of multi-layered when I work with my clients, and honestly in general. When editing or when I work with someone and I take a look at their resume, there's usually about 3 tiers to how deep we need to go. Some people may just need tier 1, which is really focusing on formatting. A lot of times people have a great resume that has great content, but it's just the way that it's presented is not really working to your benefit and to your advantage. And to that point, things that we're looking for in regards to formatting are just going to be very, straightforward, clean. It doesn't need to be overly flashy. It doesn't need to be overly colorful. In fact, sometimes that can detract from, letting your work experience truly shine, because that's the queen bee at the party, and you don't want to show her up with all these colors and brightness, because that's what's going to get you the job. So oftentimes it can come down to, just sort of formatting. Sometimes it can come down to content. That's when we're getting a little bit deeper. And generally, most of the time when I have to go in and help someone with their content, it's because they don't have enough quantifiable experience. Those numbers, those metrics, that data that's really going to, speak for you and show that you know how to do this within a role and that you've done it in your past. So really focusing on that and hitting data from your previous roles or creating some on your own if you don't have access to that. And then the third level, probably the most complicated level, is when someone does want to change fields, because then we do really need to go into the resume and try to, how are we going to make these transferable skills look as best as possible when going somewhere completely different. So really trying to hit on those soft skills, those leadership, project management, things that are very much so transferable. So it's a matter of how deep we need to get into the resume, but there's definitely, lots to change, lots to be done with everyone. Everyone needs some help with their resume, even mine. I was looking at it the other day and I was like, my resume is good. And I was like, actually, no, I need to go back in and update this. It's been a month or two. So.
Absolutely. I think it's hard because a lot of people, when they're in their job and they're in the role, they don't think about the quantifiable parts of it. They don't think about maybe how much budget they really oversee, or how effective something that they worked on was, or what is the rate of efficiency, or again, how successful was their position, or how good were they at their position, and putting metrics behind it. So it's I worked on. In accounting, for example, and I'm going to make this up and probably butcher it, but, I oversaw an accounting department with this many people. But really, what did you do from a quantifiable situation? How much money did you help the company save, for example? Those numbers that I'm, resume experts like you and recruiters, I'm sure, are looking at those very specific metrics instead of kind of generalities. Is that what you find to be beneficial to put in your resume? It sounds like it is.
No, 100%. That's going to be a lot more effective, than just, sold X to clients. If you can say sold 20% more year over year continuously to clients, that's a lot more impressive. And, maybe you meant the same thing, but saying it and including that figure is going to make it much more clear that you really do have that skill set and can grow and improve. So metrics are definitely something you need to have and something I recommend keeping track of. It's something I really wasn't very conscious of before coming to Google in such like a hard metrics based environment. But you really do need those KPIs, those key performance indicators to show that you can be successful. So even if you're not interested in leaving your job now, I always recommend to people keep a master resume and write down your successes, write down your wins, write down, how you did last quarter and keep track of that information because you may need that sort of stuff later on and you may not have access to it anymore if you're no longer at the company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think someone like you, I'm working with individuals who are looking to update their resume or update LinkedIn or what have you. I'm guessing that the more information, the better, so that you can kind of tailor or craft, start with a lot and we'll kind of craft it and tailor it to the position or the role of the company so you can kind of pluck things out. But a lot of people, they don't, in my opinion, take that information. They start with a little and they want to make it look like a lot versus taking a lot and paring it down to a little, high level, components that are going to be influential when someone's reading it. All right, so Jennifer, just for everybody listening out there, we did have a little bit of an audio issue, so I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and ask you, Jennifer, we were talking about resumes and making sure they were presented properly. What I want to ask you, and this is one of the questions that I hear all the time, or at least I'm sure people Google all the time, is really how long should a resume be? Is it a one-page type deal still something people should do? Is it two-page? I've always heard 2 pages is too long. What are your thoughts on that?
So personally, I think the one-page resume rule is super outdated. It's something they still told me in college as I was leaving, something you have to have, but I can tell you what I encounter on a daily basis is far from that. The general, theme really is 2-page resumes for people who have experience over 5 to 10 years. You usually need at least a little bit more space to, adequately show your experiences, your metrics, your skills, as well as your education. And it can just be super hard to fit all that information on one page. So 2-page, definitely if you have 5 to 10 years experience plus, 2-page is just fine to format it that way. And additionally, as you grow in your career at 15, 20 plus years, you may even need to move to a 3-page resume to show your full body of work, especially as you search for higher level roles, C-level executive roles, and things like that. So as you grow, your resume will grow, and don't be afraid to make that move to page number 2 when you need to.
That's a valid point. I think certainly it's always a dichotomy or a balance between wanting to present too little and too much. And if you have a lot of experience, I would think that you want to showcase it off. But at least in my mind, it's always been like, you want to take off all the clutter, which of course makes sense anyway. But you always want to get it down to that one page, and that's something that, at least again, I've always thought is kind of what is standard, or what is the norm, or what is expected of people. But it's good to hear that depending on how much you experience, of course, you're going to have more, and you probably should show it off. So that's I think that will help a lot of people that are considering updating their resume. And so what I want to do then is talk about one other thing. Is when people look for new opportunities, they kind of look in the same areas that they've always known about, and that could be just searching online or talking to people that they know. But I think networking as a whole is a pretty big deal in this day and age. And a lot of times people always say, what I hear a lot is people say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And what are your thoughts when it comes to networking and what it can really do for people, and why they should network instead of kind of staying in their bubble and only worrying about themselves?
So I love this question. Networking is your greatest ally. And it's something that I, really honestly just got into maybe about 3-4 months ago, and am now like the biggest advocate for it, screaming to the rooftops to everyone, like, network, connect with people, because it can seriously change your circle and change your life. And it's something that I wasn't taking advantage of before. And what I mean when I say network, because, you can have a LinkedIn profile and think you're networking, right? I had one for 5 years, and it just kind of sat there, and I was like, oh, I have a LinkedIn, it's fine, it's serving its purpose because it exists, not really, taking advantage of what LinkedIn really is. And it's just like this giant, sort of like water cooler where you can meet people and have these great exchanges of thoughts with people who you would never ordinarily get a chance to do that with in real life. And one of the greatest things you can do to start connecting that I always recommend to people is to start, producing your own posts, whether it be just like sharing your thoughts of the day, a motivational quote, or if you're brave enough to get on camera and start to teach people things that within your field or things that you're passionate about, you'd be surprised how many people are going to be able to relate to you, to reach out to you, and just the opportunities that can come from that alone.
Absolutely. And I think something that was important I talked about on episode number 1 with my other guest was that people in this day and age, I think that a career isn't just the job that you do. It's kind of who you are and what you do for work in general. And a lot of opportunity exists when I say take back your career, there's a job component of that, but there's also the other, 18, 16 hours of the day, whatever you want to call it, where people can do so much more. And I think getting out, on LinkedIn and networking with individuals and having those conversations and starting side projects where, they are sharing their expertise in the field that they work in, and posting and publishing content is a big component that is going to help other people notice who you are and what you do, and open up potentially those doorways and those pathways. Because I think a big problem that people face is that they, again, work with certain people in a company, but that's really it. That's the extent of their network, and they're never going to get exposed to other individuals and other companies and people outside of their network by only talking to the people that they're familiar with. So I think that's a huge component. And do you think then there's a certain is LinkedIn the best place to do this? Is there any other avenue which people can utilize, or any other system people can utilize to grow that network, or is LinkedIn the best one in your opinion?
So LinkedIn is the best one in my opinion. Obviously right now during COVID, we're all stuck inside. And so that's going to be the best avenue. I definitely recommend, whenever things are better, trying to attend in-person networking events as well. Those are always great, mixers and educational seminars and things like that. But what's so great about LinkedIn as opposed to other social media platforms is that, as a whole, people tend to keep it more professional. And so you can stay a lot more focused on LinkedIn, and I think accomplish more of your professional goals without a lot of that noise getting in the way. So definitely, I recommend putting yourself out there, optimize your profile so people know who you are, what you're about, where you want to go, and that's going to help you in the long run.
Perfect. Yeah, I would completely agree. So I think we've covered quite a bit in this episode already. I think you've touched on so many different ideas and actionable ideas that people can use, in their career to help them go down a specific path. So, I don't want to go too far into anything else at this moment. I think that's a good place to personally wrap it up. I think it's a lot of information that you've shared that is invaluable. And so, before kind of continuing on with this, is there anything else off the top of your mind you think people should hear and know about and utilize in their career? Any quick tidbits, any rapid fire things that you want to share?
Yeah, just in regards to resume, I don't think I hit on this hard enough, and it's something that, again, I like to scream from the rooftops when I can, is to tailor your resume to job descriptions, y'all. You absolutely need to do it. Make sure that the language being used in a resume is matching, the language being used in the job description, so that you can ensure that you're going to make it past applicant tracking systems and that you're adequately showing the work that you want to do. And just continue to leave yourself open to opportunities, guys. There's so many things out there that you haven't expected, and trust me, there's so much waiting for you. I speak from this personally. I just started networking heavily a few months ago. Adam reached out to me to speak to you guys. It's crazy what can happen when you just open yourself up and start sharing yourself with the world. So don't be afraid to take that leap, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. happy to help you guys out with some consultations in the future.
Jennifer, that is awesome. That is great advice. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. Again, Jennifer Garibay, that's jennifernoellegaribay.com for anybody interested in her business and her services herself. I highly recommend you reach out to her with any of your questions and, of course, any sort of help that you're looking for when it comes to your resume and career coaching. So, Jennifer, thank you again for your time. And, of course, thank you to everybody out there for tuning into this episode of the Take Back Your Career podcast. So with all that said, thank you again to Jennifer. And as always, I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Take Back Your Career podcast with your host, Adam Fullerton, the podcast dedicated to giving you expert advice and actionable ideas so that you can achieve real results and finally take back your career. Like what you heard in today's episode? Consider leaving a 5-star review and visiting takebackyourcareerpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify for more episodes. And remember, Mondays shouldn't suck, and neither should finding help. Thanks for listening to Take Back Your Career podcast.